I met a guy recently who said hypocrisy in the church was his great hang-up with Christianity, and I have to agree that's probably the biggest argument against Christianity. We all have heard about the scandals that are in the church, but these are pretty obviously just total frauds. These are people who, they might claim Christian on the outside, but deep down they're like, heck no. What really bothers us, I personally believe, from what I've heard from other people, it's the people who claim to be Christian and who think they're actually living the Christian life, but they're the ones who are ignoring the poor. They're the ones who, maybe a pastor who doesn't give time to God's little ones, who doesn't want to listen to them, who's not really wanting to be questioned. Maybe it's the Christian who is judging. Maybe it's someone who just lacks inspirational moral character, contrary to what God's teaching is in Jesus Christ. Like, I get that. And this was something that was right there at the beginning of the church. Jesus Christ looked at Peter and he said, "Upon you I will build my church, and the gates of hell will not prevail against you." Jesus, for whatever reason, chose sinful, broken men to be the pillars of his church, right there from the beginning. And I believe he did this to show that to be in his church means not that you're a model of perfection, but rather that you're a model of process. You begin as a sinner, but as you follow Jesus, your life is on the journey to become a saint, from sinner to saint. As they say, every saint has a past, and every sinner has a future. Or think about Judas. Judas was a lot worse than Peter. Peter just kind of denied Jesus, like, I don't know anything about him. He kind of denied any sense of suffering. But Judas handed over his master for cash, for money. Like, that's highly problematic. And this is a message to all future disciples, like saying, this could be you. Watch out. You don't want this to happen to you. If it happened to him who was so close to Jesus, you and I, who don't have such intimate contact with him in the same way, could easily fall out. That could be any one of us. We have to always be aware. I think also I want to mention that there was a time period in the church where there was no hypocrisy. There actually was a time period in the church where you either had to be a Christian or you couldn't be a Christian. And that was a time when there was persecution. When a Christian is facing risk of pain, of suffering, of death, if you're a hypocrite, you're going to be out. But if you're a true Christian, you're going to hang in there. You're going to persevere. You're going to accept that risk. And I want to encourage anyone who's out there who's like, this hypocrisy, I just don't know what to do. It kind of clouds everything these days. I want to encourage you, look at the early church. Find out how they prayed. Find out how they lived. Find out what they believed. And find the community that best matches that. I got a link here below, which is just churchfathers.org. And you can kind of just look to find out more about the early church, because I think we really need to bring back the early church into our today's church, because that early church, it wasn't perfect, but it was so much closer to that pristine sense of holiness than what we have today. We're still moving forward, though. We're on the path of process, not perfection yet. I also want to mention that Jesus Christ established his church to point to truth, to goodness, to beauty. What Jesus Christ brought about was a movement of compassion, is allowing this divine goodness to enter into human flesh so that we could return to him. And from my experience, when I encounter some really problematic reality in the church, it motivates me to hop in there and fix it, to be the change I want to see in the world. Just to give you an example, I went to the Poto football game home opener, and they were playing the Bishop Kelly Comets. And Poto got off to a 21-0 lead. But after halftime, Bishop Kelly came back, and I think they actually had the lead for a little while. And you can imagine just those faces of those Poto football players, like, oh, coach, what's going on? You know, if that player sits down on the bench and just puts his hand over his head, like, I don't want him on my team. What players I would want as a coach would be the player who comes up to me and says, coach, you got to put me in. Like, oh, man, I got to get in there. I got to fight. Like, we got to win. Like, you got to put me in the game. Like, I can make the change. I can make the play. I can do it. Like, that's what that coach would want for the player. And that's my reaction when I see hypocrisy in the church, even in my own life. Like, I'm not perfect. When I see that, like, oh, dang it, I did it again. Like, what am I doing? Like, it motivates me to pursue Christ again, to enter into deeper love, to really be a better listener, to be a better, more compassionate person, to reach out to those little ones of God, God's little ones. I also want to say that I don't believe the logic holds. The logic that says the members of the church are not so ideal, therefore the church is not the church of God. That is an incorrect reality. I don't believe that's true. Just to give you a couple examples, think of going to McDonald's, whether you're in Poto or up in Stigler. You know, if you found out that an employee was embezzling, what are you going to do? Well, you're going to hop in your car and you're going to go get your sausage egg McMuffin like normal because they're delicious. It's not complicated. It doesn't matter what the employees do. You want your good food. You want your tasty food. And if the food is tasty, that's good enough for you. Or for example, if there was a teacher maybe in your school district who was less than exemplary and there was some kind of scandal that came up, what are you going to do? I will never again educate my child. No, you're going to send your kid to the school. You're going to be attentive. You're going to really be watchful about how this kid is educated, but you're not going to just give up on education. In a similar way, when there are errors in the church, members, that does not mean that the church is erring. It means that the members are erring. The members are bad, not the church is bad. And so, not to say the church is perfect, but like if what God has established, he has established as he wanted it, and he wants it just like it is. And he's got all of our us members in a state of process, not in a state of perfection, but in a state of process. I hope this is helpful for you as you kind of navigate the waters of your own relationship with the Lord and relationship with the church. If you see me around town, I'm always happy to hear you. You can find out how to contact me below. And I'm always happy to sit down with anyone and just kind of hear your story. Peace be with you. God bless.